So in this video, we're going to be analyzing who is Kamala Harris. Now, it should be noted I am 100% against Kamala Harris and in favor of Bernie Sanders for president in 2020, but I do want to do a video on every presidential candidate for 2020 and analyze who they are and why they are not as good as Bernie Sanders. Now, to best understand who Kamala Harris is, I looked into her voting record, I looked into her donors, her website, and all the various videos about her. And so you guys don't have to look into that because I did the homework for you. Now, let's start with her website. Now, at the very top, you're going to notice something that's really important here. Kamala refuses to accept donations from corporate PACs. Add your donation here. Now, she is not taking corporate PAC money for 2020. And I do applaud her for doing this. This is a really good move. But unfortunately, we get to see who Kamala Harris's donors are. And that's thanks to Citizens United. Unfortunately, Citizens United is a terrible Supreme Court case, and I completely oppose it. However, we do get to see who donated to Kamala Harris. And there are individual contributors that are not corporate PACs, but are rich donors that have donated to Kamala Harris in the past. And that includes the 2018 Senate election race. Now, that being said, she takes a lot of donations from big corporations that in many cases range between $90,000 to $120,000 each. That means that there are certain CEOs and corporations that are giving to Kamala Harris lots of money. And that is not the case for Bernie Sanders. The CEOs and the corporations that are donating to Senator Bernie Sanders are typically donating up to about $5,000. So typically, Bernie Sanders is getting small donors, whereas Kamala Harris is actually getting a lot of her funds from large donors. Those large donors likely have a financial incentive to suggest to her to lower taxes for the rich. And not surprisingly, she has not run on taxing the rich, which is overwhelmingly popular. Now, that being said, that is what this website starts with, claiming that she is not taking corporate PAC money as if she is against the rich, but she is not in favor of raising taxes for the rich. And we'll see that later on. Now, let's take a look at what she stands for. What is her slogan here? It says Kamala Harris, for the people. Now, when I think about for the people, I think about populism. Populism is essentially a political platform where you are in favor of the policies that your country wants the most. So, for example, universal background checks has over 90% popularity rating. A populist would be in favor of universal background checks. Universal healthcare has over 70% approval rating. In some cases, polls suggest that it's 75%, with 85% approval from Democrats and 52% amongst Republicans. So a populist, someone who is quote unquote for the people, would be in favor of Medicare for all. Now, that being said, Kamala Harris is in favor of a lot of populist ideas. However, that is not her main drive, and we're going to see that very shortly. As you can see in bold black letters, it says, speaking truth, demanding justice. When I think about speaking truth and demanding justice, I think that this is like an antithesis to who Donald Trump is. Meaning that when I read this, I see an anti-Trumper, a never-Trumper. And unfortunately, that's what Hillary Clinton ran on. And that's probably why she lost, is because she wasn't Donald Trump. She wanted the status quo, though, and she was heavily establishment. And Kamala Harris is, unfortunately, she's dipped her feet into the establishment, the swamp, if you will. So let's see what she is running on. This is her main prompt, if you will, of who Kamala Harris is according to her own website. Kamala Harris is a lifelong public safety and civil rights leader elected in 2016. Elected in 2016, she is the second African-American woman in history to be elected to the U.S. Senate and the first African-American and first woman to serve as Attorney General of the state of California. So something about women, and she's black. This is exactly what CNN did, guys. This is exactly what CNN did. They posted a bunch of articles on Kamala Harris on the fact that she's a woman, she's black, She's a black woman. You got to vote for her. Oh, you don't like her? Oh, you're a racist. You're a sexist. This is what happened to all the progressives back in the 2016 campaign with Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump. If you were against Hillary Clinton, if you said anything bad about Hillary Clinton, you're a sexist. You're against women. You're a sexist. But it's like, no, I just don't like Hillary Clinton's policies. She's not for Medicare for all. She wasn't for a living wage. She wasn't for free education. You know, she wasn't for anything that favored. She was for the Keystone XL pipeline. Like, she was as Republican as it can get for the most part. She was almost like a Mitt Romney. It was scary. But you know what? You're a sexist if you don't like her. And unfortunately, I think that's what CNN and most corporate media are doing with Kamala Harris. Now, unfortunately, Kamala Harris's website does not provide anything beyond what I showed you guys. And that's really sad, because if I'm running for president, the first thing I would do is I would tell you guys what I am in favor of. I would share with you guys, I want Medicare for all. I want this. I want that. I want, but unfortunately, her entire website is her childhood and how she does support Medicare for all. That was in there, but that she was the first black woman. And guys, she's a black woman. And by the way, she's black and she's a woman. But, I'm not going to bother you with showing you guys those details. So I then decided to watch her announcement of her running for president. And it's a 10-minute video. I'm not going to show you guys too much. I highly recommend you go on YouTube and look up Kamala Harris announcement for presidential race. But I did write down all of the things, all the policies that she went through. Now, keep in mind that these policies were basically flooded with, for every one policy that she stood for, she mentioned at least 9 platitudes. So like only 10% of her stuff was substance. The other 90% was, and we need to fight for people and Americans and America and America. And that was it. And like 90% of it, I don't want to bore you with 10 minutes of, so I'm just going to tell you the substance. She stands for Medicare for all. Her voting record actually does suggest that she stands for Medicare for all. Her donors do not seem to be amongst the pharmaceutical industry. So I actually do think that she might run for Medicare for all. But keep in mind, I don't think she has a way of paying for it. And I'm going to explain that later on. She is in favor of, and listen carefully, debt-free college. Notice I said debt-free college and not free college. There is a difference between debt-free college and free college. Free college, most people say, I want free 4-year universities. That's like Bernie Sanders kind of a thing. And I'm 100% in favor of free education, for free 4-year education, and possibly even, I know no one wants to suggest this, but I'm in favor of free grad school as well. But it's because I went to grad school and got student loans there. But that being said, yeah, that was a little fishy to me. Debt-free college. I'm not quite sure what she means by that. She is in favor of universal unions. So a union for every job. She is in favor of universal pre-K. She is in favor of tax cuts for the poor and middle class. Now we'll get back to that one in a second here. That one's kind of interesting. She is in favor of basic income, up to $500 a month. She's not in favor of universal basic income. She's in favor of basic income for those who don't make $500 a month. You can make up to $500 a month. Not quite in favor of that either, because there are struggling people who are in the middle class. They're struggling. They could use that $500 a month. But whatever. She is in favor of protecting voting transparency. So apparently she thinks that voter transparency is an issue that Americans really care about. And unfortunately it is, even though it's 100% legit in the US. Like, we have a really good, tight system. It could be way better. But voter transparency was one of the things she's running on, which was kind of interesting to me. Her main focus, though, throughout her entire speech was social justice. She is in favor of justice reform. And that's likely because she was an attorney general for California. She's a prosecutor. And so she is in favor of law and order, essentially, and improving law and order. And so that's something I think that she's going to heavily focus on. Now let's go into how is she going to pay for these socialist agenda, right? That's all the Republicans are going to say. She said two things about taxes, essentially. Tax cuts for the poor and middle class. I like this. Don't get me wrong. I am in favor of giving tax cuts to the poor and the middle class. But that means that you get less money. And so you have to somehow make more money. And to do that, the way I think we should go about that is, sorry, I'm looking up her donors, is taxing the rich. But unfortunately, Kamala Harris is not in favor of taxing the rich. That was not one of the things that she mentioned. And I'm going to share with you all the other things that she didn't mention. That's really important. And so how are you going to pay for it? If anyone questions Kamala Harris, how are you going to pay for this? She's going to say, I don't know, just tax cuts for the poor and middle class. She also said she wants to reverse the Trump tax cuts. Now that's great. That would save us about $162 billion a year. Or if she wants to go all the way, it would lower the deficit by $1.5 trillion, and it would benefit us quite a bit. But there is a lot more tax cuts that we need to reverse other than just that. So I don't actually think that she wants to tax the rich, and I want to share with you guys why that is. Let's go over to her donors, who is funding Kamala Harris, and then we'll look into after that her voting record, and then after that we'll talk about who Kamala Harris is in the mainstream media. So Kamala Harris, let's take a look at Open Secrets Kamala Harris. Now, this is for the 2018 election. She raised this is from 2013 to 2018. She raised between around $22.7 million. That's a lot. Who's donating to her? Let's look at her contributors. Now, I'm going to be looking between 2013 and 2018 at both campaign committees and PACs. Now, if you look at these donations, those are really high donations. Those are big contributors. Who's contributing? Warner Media. Guys, corporate media is in favor of Kamala Harris. Not good, guys. I don't think she's going to be in favor of taxing the rich. I don't think Warner Brothers are going to not lobby Kamala Harris. Like, think about it. These guys are going to lobby the heck out of Kamala Harris. What do you think Warner Brothers want? What do you think Warner Media wants? Yes, lower taxes. Absolutely. There's no way she's going to reverse the Trump tax cuts. I don't even think she could do that. University of California, I'm not really concerned about that one. However, she did get a pretty big donation from that one. Some Venable LLP, some creative artist agency, not super concerned. Alphabet donated to her. Now, Alphabet is Google. That's the parent company of Google. They have also donated to Bernie Sanders, but they only donated about like $5,000 to Bernie Sanders. They donated $101,000 to Kamala Harris. Like, that should concern you. What does Kamala Harris have that Bernie Sanders doesn't? Oh, I know. Kamala Harris doesn't support tax cuts for the rich. Guys, she's just going to let the rich be richer. The biggest problem right now is the income inequality in the U.S. And Kamala Harris is not going to do anything about it. 21st Century Fox. Fox News likes her. Fox News donated to her. Guys, I know if you watch corporate media out there, if you're not subscribed to like things like this, Secular Talk, David Pakman, Sam, what's his name? I can't remember. Jake Uger on TYT. Like, if you're not subscribed to progressive media outlets online and you're watching CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, Fox News is really, really, really Republican, conservative. Like, they don't talk about Kamala Harris, but they're donating to her. Don't you think that's a little off? Even if you're a Republican watching this video, don't you think that's a little off? Your Republican media outlet is donating $95,000 to Kamala Harris. Can you tell me why? Why is that? Like, that's almost as shocking as Fox News donating $95,000 to the socialist Bernie Sanders, right? Like, yeah, that's off. Comcast, Walt Disney, Apple, 56,000. The ones I'm not super concerned about are State of California, University of California. They're donating to a lot of political candidates, but what is concerning to me is that they're donating a lot of money to Kamala Harris. Now, just to give you reference here, Bernie Sanders, let's take a look at his contributors. The top one is the University of California, and then moveon.org. And then all of these like American institutions of, and he takes corporate PAC money. I don't know if you guys can notice this. He takes like $100,000 of corporate PAC money, and this is from 2013 to 2018 as well. But the thing is, the donations are very small. Why are they small? Because Bernie Sanders does not actually support policies that these people like. So, Kamala Harris, do you believe her when she says that she runs on Medicare for all, that she says she runs on debt-free college, unions for all jobs, universal pre-K? I don't think so. She's not going to tax the rich, that's for sure. I think she is in favor of keeping the income inequality the way it is. Keep in mind, Kamala Harris is also very rich. Now, let's talk about a couple more things. First off, 41% of you don't know who Kamala Harris is. 41%, and she gets more coverage than Bernie Sanders. She's gotten like 30 stories on CNN, and Bernie Sanders has got maybe 2. But 41% don't know who Kamala Harris is, and like over 90% of Americans know who Bernie Sanders is and what he stands for. Why? Because he's very clear when he runs his presidential elections. He runs on like 4 major things: Green New Deal, universal education, universal health care, and a living wage. Like, if you don't know that, then you're deaf. Then you're blind and deaf, and everything. Every single thing is wrong about you. You've been living under a rock. Now, I do want to get into her voting record. Her voting record is actually very close to Bernie Sanders. She agrees with him about 91% of the time, 93% of the time with Bernie Sanders. However, there are a few issues that I disagree with, and I think it's fair for you to know what those things are. She has voted to expand private health care to veterans. This is a recent vote. Bernie Sanders opposed this. She voted for it. Expanding private health care to veterans. Not expanding the VA, expanding private health care to veterans. Is she in favor for universal health care? Doesn't look like it. That kind of looks like a red flag. She is in favor of increasing border security. Even though they make millions and billions of dollars every year, border security and ICE make more than the CIA, FBI, and DEA combined. But Kamala Harris thinks that they need more money. Interesting. She is against imposing sanctions on Russia, Iran, and North Korea. That one's a little interesting, specifically the Russia one. She's against imposing sanctions on Russia. Yeah, Russia messed with our democracy a little bit. She is apparently in favor of protecting our voting transparency, but she's against imposing sanctions on the very country that imposed on our voter security and our transparency. Wow, if that's not a contradiction, I don't know what is. She also voted for Nikki Haley. So, if you don't know who Nikki Haley is, she was the UN ambassador, and she got us kicked off of the Human Rights Council. So that's Kamala Harris, everyone. Should you vote for Bernie Sanders? Obviously, yes. So